What's going on, everyone? So welcome to the latest video. This is my top 10 Christmas movies of all time. So huge shout out to my friend Tommy Townsend for actually suggesting this video. This is a video that when he suggested it to me, I was kind of nervous to do because whenever I think of Christmas movies, I'm always like, I don't think I have a top 10 list. I don't think I have enough because a lot of times it's quite miss for me in terms of Christmas movies, at least the ones that you immediately think about. But then I started thinking about it more and more, and I was like, my criteria for Christmas movies are quite simple. It's that the film is set at Christmas. So for many people, it has to be much more. It has to be, focused on like family, involving like Santa Claus or elves and everything. For me, it's much more simple. It's just the setting is at Christmas time at some point. So based on that criteria, I was able to come up with a top 10 list, and it's a mix of feel-good and feel-bad movies. Some of these are going to be quite obvious Christmas movies, whilst other ones I might have to do a bit of explaining. But either way, keep in mind that my list will be different from yours, and that's what's great about film as an art form. It is subjective, and I honestly am very excited to see your top 10 Christmas movies of all time, so that way I can also maybe add some even more movies to, watch down the line. But anyways, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give an honorable mention, and I'm going to go from 10 to 1, with 1 being, of course, my favorite Christmas movie. And again, the criteria for me is quite simple. The film is set at Christmas time at some point in the film. And again, your criteria might be different, and that's what I love about film. But anyways, guys, enough exposition. Let's get started. So kicking things off, honorable mention, we have Bad Santa, a hilarious, raunchy film that has a really good lead performance by Billy Bob Thornton. It's a film that has also some surprisingly heartwarming messages, and of course, the film takes place all around Christmas time. I mean, he literally plays a Santa Claus, like at a mall. So it's definitely a Christmas movie, 100%, and it barely missed the list. I definitely really appreciate this film. I've seen it a handful of times, and I really like it each time. And that's why it's an honorable mention. Next up, my number 10, we have Phantom Thread. So I know what you're thinking. Phantom Thread's a Christmas movie? Well, yeah. So a lot of the movie, specifically the second half, focuses on Christmas time and New Year's time. And that right there is the criteria. This is a very well-acted film. It is definitely not a feel-good film, but it is a film that is quite thought-provoking. And it is a film that I am, as of filming this video, planning to watch within the next couple of days, which, again, I'm filming this video on December 22nd. So, again, it's the perfect time to watch this film. But, again, not an immediately thought of Christmas time when you think about this movie, but again, it does take place technically around Christmas time in the second half, and it does also deal with family. Doesn't deal with elves though, but it does deal with family issues as well. So this is a very complex film, not your typical romance in the slightest, but a very, very well crafted film, and that's why it's my number 10. Next up, my number 9. I feel like this is a little bit easier to explain as to why it's a Christmas movie, but my number 9 is The Green Knight. So The Green Knight, let's talk about it. So the opening of the film takes place Christmas Day. There's an event, not going to spoil what the event is, but there's an event that happens and it propels the plot forward. And a year later, there's a character that has to do something on Christmas Day. So the first act and the third act both take place on Christmas Day. First half, it's very obvious that it is Christmas Day. It's wintry and everything. It's what you immediately think about with Christmas time. It's wintry, it's all nice and everything. Versus the second half, it's not wintry. It's very warm colors that are utilized. And that's to show not only the contrast of the character's journey and everything, but at the same time, it's also to show that there's going to be a different set of events that ensue compared to the first half. So why am I saying all this? I'm saying this because The Green Knight, it's not a film that you immediately think about as a Christmas movie, but it technically is because, again, the literally opening of the first act and the end of the third act are taking place on Christmas Day. So not your typical Christmas movie for sure, but it is a really, really good film. Not for everyone, but it is really, really good, and I'm planning to rewatch this the next couple of days too. But yeah, that's The Green Knight. Next up, my number 8, I do not own, unfortunately. That's because I am patiently waiting for the 4K, and that is my number 8, Eyes Wide Shut. Eyes Wide Shut is a great film. Stanley Kubrick film, stars Tom Cruise, Nicole Kidman. Very, very well acted. This is another film where you don't immediately think of a Christmas movie necessarily, but it is a feel-bad Christmas movie. Like watching this movie, it is a dissection of, relationships, and the setting, the backdrop is around Christmas time. So that being said, it's very interesting how the film has the backdrop of it being Christmas, But then when Tom Cruise goes on his journey at nighttime and he goes down the rabbit hole, so to speak, of like the Illuminati-esque society, it's very interesting to see the contrast of those two elements. It's a fascinating film. Again, it takes place at Christmas time, which is why I categorize this as a Christmas movie, but definitely not a film that most people would think about during Christmas time. But I mean, I would definitely recommend watching it on Christmas time because it is a fascinating film. But just I wouldn't pick it on family movie night, that's for sure. But yeah, Eyes Wide Shut. It's my number 8. Next up, my number 7. I haven't picked it up on 4K yet. I've been meaning to, but my number 7 is A Christmas Story. You'll shoot your eye out, kid. So this film is very heartwarming, and it's a nice palate cleanser from the other entries that I mentioned. Christmas Story is very heartwarming. It's a very funny film. It is at the same time nostalgia fueled, but it's nostalgia fueled in a way where it makes sense for the story and the characters. So I really appreciate that. It's not something that feels like it could be made today, because we did get a sequel, and you can feel the commercialization of it in the sequel versus this original one, the 1983 version. It feels so wholesome. It feels like the director really wanted to get across his vision, and you can feel that. The narration is also really good. It's just a very well put together film. And again, when people think of Christmas movies, a lot of times they think of like family, and this is definitely a film that focuses on family and does so in a very interesting way. So for me, Christmas Story, that's why it's my number 7. Next up, as controversial as The Green Knight and Phantom Thread might be as terms of like Christmas movies, number 6 is the one that, to this day, gets debated on if it's a Christmas movie. I don't understand why. I really don't. But my number 6 is Die Hard. It's a Christmas movie. It's a Christmas movie. Come on. Let's face it. It's a Christmas movie. Is it a typical Christmas movie? No, it's not. It's an action film. But it takes place on Christmas. That's literally the setting. And John McClane is literally going to a Christmas party event. It's a Christmas movie, and a darn good one. This has one of the best villains of all time. It has, of course, one of the best heroes of all time. It's very, very well put together. I love the way it's shot. Love how intense the action is. But at the same time, it also has some surprisingly really good messages by the end of the film. So definitely a satisfying film. And yes, I am Team Die Hard as a Christmas movie. So there's that. But yeah, Die Hard. My number 6. And now we get into the nitty gritty top 5, guys. So my number 5, this is a new entry, and that is Holdover. Is really, really good. This is definitely one of my favorite films of 2023, but it is also a film that, watching it, I immediately said this is going to be one of my favorite holiday films, because it's like a warm blanket. Just watching that film, it's like a bittersweet warm blanket. You can't help but really love it. Immediately fell in love with the characters, the dialogue, the humor. I love the themes. I love the messages. It's such a complex film with a simple premise, but it's done so effortlessly well by everyone involved. You can't help but really appreciate it. And again, going back to the other movies, it's also a film that focuses on the themes of family and does so in a really interesting way. And of course, the setting is completely surrounded around Christmas, getting ready for Christmas break. So this is a film that I love. I hope that you guys check this out, because you'll definitely be seeing this crop up on top, holiday movies, top Christmas movies down the line. It's that good. It's really, really good. And that's why The Holdovers is my number 5. Next up, my number 4. This is going to be an interesting one to explain. So my number 4, we have LA Confidential. Look, the second half might not necessarily take place during Christmas, but the first act in particular takes place all around Christmas. I mean, the main plot point that drives the story is an event called Bloody Christmas. So yeah, this is a Christmas movie. Not a typical Christmas movie, because it is a neo-noir, gritty, action, plot-heavy film. But it is technically a Christmas movie. I mean, literally, there's a scene where they're going to get booze to, go to a Christmas party, and that's, again, before the Bloody Christmas event. You see a lot of Christmas decorations and everything. It's a Christmas movie. I don't really have to justify it. It's a Christmas movie. I love LA Confidential. It is one of the best neo-noir films, just one of my favorite films of all time. So I would highly recommend LA Confidential if you haven't done so already. But again, if you're watching this list and you haven't seen it, just, again, know that based on my criteria, that's why it's on this list, because, again, it does take place around Christmas time, especially early on, and literally what catapults the film in terms of the plotting is a major event that takes place on Christmas Day. So, boom, Checkmate. So yeah, LA Confidential, it's my number 4. Next up, my number 3, I don't really have to do much explaining about this. My number 3 is Carol. I love Carol. I actually saw Carol Christmas Day of 2015, and it was such a great theater experience. So odd, though, because when I watched it, it was actually a rare instance where it was like 65, 70 degrees. So it didn't feel like Christmas time that day, but watching Carol in a theater, it did feel like Christmas Day. This is a film that I absolutely adore. It's got one of my favorite endings of all time. It's got, these relationships that are really complex. Great performances. Rooney Mara and Cate Blanchett are just knocking it out of the park. And I really love the cinematography, the costume design, the makeup. They do a really good job of really making you feel as though you're in the 1950s during, this Christmas setting. I love it, man. I really do. This is one of the first films that I think about when I think about Christmas movies. I love this film. Not for everyone necessarily, but I would highly recommend it because it is a great, great film. And that's why Carol was my number 3. Next up, my number 2. This was the film that, for the longest time, and by the longest time, I mean literally up until a couple days ago, was my number 1. And that's my number 2, which is It's a Wonderful Life. So this is a film that growing up, it was tradition to watch this on Christmas Eve. And honestly, I still kind of hold that tradition. Or at least I try to. I think there's a year or two in the past that I have missed it. But for the most part, I do try to watch this on Christmas Eve because this is a film that's kind of crazy in that watching it at like 10, 20, almost 30 now, each decade I find myself appreciating something more and more about this film. It is a universal film. I feel like everyone can relate to it. I've heard some people complain that like modern audiences might not appreciate the pacing, but honestly, I think the pacing is pitch perfect, and I think the performances are great. James Stewart in particular does such a great job. It's dealing with some, heavy issues in terms of like the themes and messages, but it's done so in a way that, again, the relatability I feel like is there for everyone. Everyone can relate to this character, I feel as though, and I gotta say, it's a film that hits the landing every single time. I found myself last time honestly having tears in my eyes. It's a very emotional film, but it's also such a satisfying film. One of my favorite films of all time, and this again was my favorite Christmas film for the longest time too. But then I started thinking about my number 1, and I was like, yeah, this would technically be a Christmas movie. So I think starting this year, I'm going to try to start watching my number 1 on Christmas Day. My number 1 is The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. This is a film that I know I can easily get away with saying it's a Christmas movie because when this film came out in December of 2011, it was advertised as the feel-bad holiday movie event of the year. And they're not wrong. They're really not. This film takes place around Christmas Day I believe it's the first act, and then it's a 5-act film. I believe it's Act 5. A character then says it's Christmas Day again. And also the film has a lot of snow. Like a lot of snow. You see some Christmas decorations early on, but for the most part, it's the wintry elements. It's the fact that during 2 important plot reveals in the first act and Act 5, it's revealed that it's Christmas Day. And honestly, this film does also cover family. That's the thing also about many of these films. They do technically cover family issues, and this film definitely does as well. Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, it's not an easy watch, not in the slightest, but it is a film that, for those of you that want feel-bad type Christmas movies, this is definitely the one to watch. If you want a feel-good film, watch It's a Wonderful Life. But The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, it's the feel-bad Christmas movie for me. I love this film. It's one of my favorite films of all time. It's in my top 25, and I just feel as though it goes up the ranks. I can watch this film on repeat. I absolutely love it, and The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, that's why it's my number 1. But yeah, guys, that's my non-traditional top 10 Christmas movies list. I'm very curious to see your top 10 Christmas movies of all time, though. Let me know in the comment section down below. I'm very, very curious to see your guys' thoughts, as well as I just wanted to say, don't forget subscription, notification bell, follow me down on Letterboxd, and I will catch you guys later.